Welcome to this Friday edition of Asia Business Report. I'm Sharonjit Lail in Singapore. Now, China is planning to revise its patent laws to meet World Trade standards. That's according to the state-run China Daily. The report quotes an official of the State Intellectual Property Office saying he hopes the amendments will be in place by 2008. Commercial piracy costs foreign companies some $16 billion in lost sales every year. China pledged to combat the problem when it joined the World Trade Organization a few years ago. But skeptics say China may find it tough to enforce its laws to meet international standards. Well, joining us now in our studios is Simon Littlewood, president of consulting firm Asia Now. Now, critics, of course, say China is famous for promising much but delivering actually very little. How much of this proposed reforms are simply posturing ahead of the WTO talks in Hong Kong next month?
Most of it. Is the short answer. The slightly longer answer would be that the issue in China is actually not the absence of legislation. The issue in China is the will to enforce it. And that's very evident. I mean, I was in Shanghai earlier this week. I arrived there the day after Bush left China, and they were just opening the fake market again, having kept it judiciously closed during his visit. Fakery contributes a very significant amount to the Chinese economy. It is a Chinese political imperative to maintain growth because they fear unrest. They're not going to do anything that's going to have a significant adverse impact on economic activity. If you look at what's actually been proposed, they're going to go through a very lengthy process of consultation and come up with some recommendations which they then may start to implement in 2008. I mean, hardly a fast-track process.
Now, let's take a look at some of those amendments that they're suggesting now. There's the improving of patent protection, setting up courts to deal with IP property rights. Will this significantly help China's piracy problem?
You know, where they have bothered to take people to court, there hasn't been, in my experience, a problem with getting convictions. So again, I have to suggest that the problem is not with the existing legal framework. Yeah, I think that it's simply the will to enforce it. And I listened to a senior government employee about a year ago, an economist, talk about how serious they were about executing. But on the other hand, when I talk to my multinational clients in China, they have massive problems with counterfeiting, and they know that they have significant problems when it comes to actually getting support from the police or local authorities in dealing with it. And that continues to be a major difficulty.
Now, why do you think, I mean, with the WTO breathing down their neck and the international community and, you know, President Bush's visit recently, as you suggested, why do you think they're not willing to enforce it?
Well, I think, first of all, because they don't have to, and secondly, because they're more concerned with maintaining economic growth. I mean, and they don't want to offend people, but one of the things that you've seen with China over the last couple of years is they've got more comfortable about making decisions that are... They're less anxious to jump around and please foreign opinion. I mean, that's becoming very evident as they find their feet. And there's also something very Chinese about this, I think, as we said earlier. You know, when some of us are thinking about ways in which China is going to lead the world in terms of innovation, and one area will be in prevarication, and this is a very, very good example of classic prevarication.
Now, on a related note, I mean, there's an article on the front cover of the FT today saying that the US could bar foreign researchers, particularly Chinese ones, in sensitive areas, particularly in high tech. And to what extent is this a huge worry for the US, or do you think it's more sort of xenophobic paranoia?
I think the notion that in today's world, with the level of connectivity that we have, that there is a massive amount that you can't find out about things if you're determined, I think is just a complete lot of nonsense. I think there's a big gap, as anyone who works in industry knows, between what's officially known and what everybody actually knows, the scuttlebutt. I think this, again, is a very sad example of US paranoia. I'm not saying there aren't examples of espionage, but in reality, this is another feature of a somewhat paranoid political environment in the US, exacerbated by 9/11, which I think is very, very damaging to global growth, and of course flies in the face of all this dialogue and all this rhetoric about global trade harmonization as well.
Okay, we'll leave it on that note then. Always nice to talk to you, Simon. Simon Littlewood from Asia Now. And that wraps up this edition of Asia Business Report. Thanks so much for watching.